Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me this morning or this afternoon for this Capsource investor call. My name is Jeff Winkler. I am the court-appointed receiver for Capsource. I wanted to do this call today in order to give you guys some updates on what's been going on in the case recently and to answer some specific questions that we received from investors. You are also welcome to post questions in the chat, and my staff will do their best they can to answer those questions. But we will be answering, like I said, specific questions that we received ahead of time from investors and look to get those answers the best we can. So again, the disclaimer, nothing I say today should be construed as legal or financial advice. If you have any specific questions related to anything I say, I recommend that you reach out to either competent legal or tax counsel to discuss any questions that you might have specifically. Any mention of anybody in this case should be considered innocent until proven guilty. The goal of what we're going to talk about today is Capsource and the Capsource related entities. There are some other related entities that are not part of the receivership currently, and that we will mention throughout here, but some of which include Horizon Trust, Cap West, and the various different Cap West funds, Global Biolabs, West Coast Income Fund, and others. We may mention them here as they relate to questions that we've received, but just note that those are not receivership entities. So my team is composed of, there's a total of 11 of us, but there are some specific staff that primarily have been working on this case, including Josh McGraw, Anna Preeby, Renee Diependorf, or John Hall. So if you ever get contacted by anybody from my office, that should not come as a surprise, because we do have a staff that works on this. And like I said, those are just some of the people that work on this on a regular basis. As a reminder, I am the receiver of Capsource, which means that I'm a neutral third party appointed by the court and ultimately answer to the judge. In this case, our judge is Richard Boulware in the District of Nevada, United States District Court. And the magistrate court judge that works with us is Magistrate Judge Danielle Albrechts. Ultimately, my job as a receiver is to take in the assets, to work with the various different assets that belong to the receivership estate, and ultimately to liquidate those for the benefit of investors, and then give that money back to investors. This case started out a little different than most. It started out, I was the chief restructuring officer put in place after Greg Hurling and Steve Byrne and Capsource all agreed to a judgment with the SEC. Initially, that's what we were doing, but ultimately was decided that the best avenue was to convert it to a full receivership in order to best help investors get their money back and work through the various different processes. So as I said, we do various different things. We marshal assets, we investigate, we do accounting, we sell assets, and we distribute money back to investors. We do claims processes. We sue third parties who might be liable for various different things in the case. We deal with the taxes of the estate, and then ultimately we'll do a final distribution out to investors where they'll receive the rest of the money that's available in the estate. We did receive a number of questions from investors, some of which were specific to specific loans, and others that are just more general questions. So we'll go through those general questions first, and then we'll work on those loans that are specific to certain properties. So overall, when can we expect resolution to differences and balances ascribed to investors? I can only assume that question has to do with the balance as reported by whatever custodian of your retirement account you're talking about, whether that be Horizon Trust or a different custodian. In those cases, those reconciliations will need to be done with whoever that custodian is. If there's specific questions or differences in information, I would encourage you to reach out to my staff and have a conversation about that, and we can see if we can't deal with any of those particular issues. Every trust fund does things differently on how they manage accounts and how they allocate payments across those accounts. And so that's why we first recommend that you reach out to them on those questions. But if you're not getting your questions answered, we do want you reaching out to us and see if we can't help you with that. So next question is, recently there were communications stating that some investors receive 80% of their invested money. I did not receive anything. What does that mean? So we did receive permission from the court to do an interim distribution. In that interim distribution, there's a few parts of it that are very important to recognize. Number one, the first of which is that the distribution will happen 45 days after the end of every quarter. So we just had a quarter that came due at the end of December. Those payments are due to be sent to investors by the 15th of February. Those payments will actually go out either this afternoon or tomorrow morning into the mail system, and so they will be in your hands potentially even as early as the 15th. But do give them a week or two for delivery, because the postal service is that's about the average delivery time right now. So that is 45 days after the end of every quarter. But the other thing to remember is the distribution varies based on how the money came into the estate. If we sold an asset or sold a loan portfolio, 60% of that money will be distributed at the end of the 45 days at the end of the calendar quarter. If it was just a standard interest payment, 75% of that money will be distributed out during that time period. Now, if you did not receive money in the first distribution, that means that we did not receive any money on your investment at that point. We do, when the money goes out, we did know which investments it is involved in and how much money. There are some of the investments that we're receiving no money on, and some of them that we're receiving little money on. But those distributions will go out 45 days, after the end of each of these quarters. So if you have not received a payment, it means that your investment is not one that is receiving payments or has been sold yet. We will walk through some of the different assets and give you guys an idea of what is the current status of them. Let's see. The next question is if somebody is interested in buying a receivership property, how can they reach out to you? They should reach out to my office and make contact with my office. Josh McGraw would be the primary contact for that. We do encourage them to reach out, but do keep in mind that some of these loans that we have are just that, they're loans. And so it isn't a sale of the property. The property's already been sold. It's actually the loan portfolio itself that would potentially be sold. But in most of these cases, we are working with the lenders the borrowers, for them to either refinance these loans or to pay them off in some other way in order for us to then give that money back to investors sooner. How much longer will our money be tied up in this? The answer is unfortunately unknown. Like I said, and I'll give you an update here in a second. A number of these properties that remain are either in the process of being sold, or are very near that process, and we'll talk about those. The final asset that will be remaining when all this is said and done is going to be the ARC. Those invested in ARC as an option 3 investor. That one will probably be the one that takes a little bit longer than the others to get finalized, but we have a good working relationship with the people on the ARC side, and we do believe that will get resolved as quickly as possible and very fairly to the investors. Will I get any of my money back? The answer is yes. To the extent that you've invested and you have not received all your principal back, you will receive money back through the distribution process. If you're involved in a loan that was already sold or already bought out, and you receive less than all of your money back due to the circumstances of that loan, there will be a potential opportunity to make a claim for that money and receive additional distributions later on in the process. The question is, when will it be over? We don't have an exact date because there's a lot of things that have to fall into line. But there's probably no chance that the case will be over this year. But if everything plays out right and we can get the claims done and everything else done, the hope would be that we could get it done at some point in the next calendar year. I'm in the process of transferring my IRA to another broker. How do I inform the receivership of my new broker? So you just need to reach out to us. There's actually a form that we can give you to fill out. We will be posting that form to the website as well. But you can always reach out to us via email at contact@capsource-receivership.com, or you can call us at 971-357-2220. And we can help you with that. And again, we'll post that contact information in the chat, as well as I will read it again before the end of the call here today. So it says next question is, Horizon is asking for the fair market value of these investments for year-end reporting. How would those be reported? All I would say is if Horizon Trust has specific questions as to the valuation on them, just have them reach out to us and we'll work with them to get that done. We do understand the importance of getting that done, and we'll work with them. Next question is, would it be advisable to get a lawyer? Due to the receivership, there is a stay on any litigation in the case, so that nobody would be able to sue to get anything done. I would never tell somebody not to hire an attorney. However, I'm not sure that one is necessary at this point because there isn't a lot that an attorney could do at this point. But we are, continuing to work through these various different assets, like I said, and our hope is to not only get, people their money back for those that still have outstanding investments that are still on the books of Capsource, but for those that also took shortfalls previously. Next question is, how would another lawsuit affect the receivership? There is a stay in place which prevents any of the lawsuits from being filed. If somebody was to file a lawsuit, they would open themselves up to contempt for violation of the court order. So if anybody is considering that, I would highly recommend that they talk to an attorney and make sure that they've read the court order prior to doing that. The next group of questions has to do with taxes. And again, I would point out if you have specific tax questions, you want to talk to a tax preparer, or tax attorney, or CPA in order to get those questions answered. So the first question is, will there be any income tax obligations on our part for 2023? If so, when will tax forms be sent? So distributions that come out of a receivership estate we do not send tax forms for those distributions. They're considered distributions as part of that estate. And so you're going to want to talk with whoever your tax preparer is on the best way to report that to the IRS and determine whether or not you will owe any taxes on that. At this point, any distributions that are going back to investors are return of principal and not interest payments. And so that will affect the way that those get allocated for tax purposes. The last question in that section is, can we deduct any losses on our taxes to the IRS? There is certain sections of the tax code that does discuss losses in this type of situation, fraud or theft losses. However, until the receivership is done, the investors won't know if they're going to have a loss or what that loss amount would be. So you're going to want to talk to a tax advisor and give them the information you have, and as well as our quarterly reports really lay out where we are in the process and what the next steps will be in that process. So the next group of questions has to do with defendants and third parties. First question is, could you please elaborate on the conflict of interest with Greg Hurlian being the founder of Capsource and the owner of Horizon Trust? Some people got their fees waived at Horizon Trust. Shouldn't the fees get waived for all investors? Greg is non-responsive. Why is he allowed to run Horizon? So as you know, I'm a neutral third party in this. I have no say as to what the penalty was against Mr. Hurlian and what he can and can't do. Whether or not there's a conflict of interest there is not for me to decide. If you do have specific concerns related to that, I would recommend that you reach out to the other people involved in this case, including potentially the Securities and Exchange Commission, the State Department of Financial Regulation, if you have specific questions regarding that type of issue. Again, we work on the civil side only, and we really only work on the area that we've been asked to focus on. I wish I had a better answer there, but I would say that that's probably your best approach. Next question is Greg Hurlian being held accountable, and how trustworthy is he? He did sign a judgment with the SEC. He was forced to pay a fine, and there were other penalties that were imposed. That information is available in the judgments, which are posted to our website. So if you have questions on that, we're happy to send those to you for you to see them. And the final question is anybody going to jail? What are the consequences? Again, the civil consequences are laid out in the judgments with the SEC. As far as going to jail, that is the Department of Justice. That is a completely separate department from the SEC. The SEC only works on the civil side. And so the Department of Justice would be responsible for the criminal side. I am not aware of any criminal prosecution, but I wouldn't necessarily be aware of it any more than you would. But if you have questions about that, you can reach out to the U.S. Attorney's Office, for the state of Nevada, which is located in Las Vegas, and ask them about that. But again, I don't have any insight as to that. Claims and distribution process would be the final section of the non-loan specific questions from investors. And the first one is, what is the estimated time frame to receive payments back? So if your property is one that's being sold or one that is receiving payments, you'll receive those payments 45 days at the end of every calendar quarter. If you were not part of that, then you'll need to wait until there is a claims process where you have an opportunity to make a claim for those monies. We do believe that there were investors that took shortfalls in some of these loans, especially the ones that were dealt with over the last few years. And we do believe there will be sources of funds available to pay back investors some, if not all, of any shortfall. But again, that's going to be based on how these sales end up going and ultimately how much money is left over when everything is said and done. Our goal, though, is to open a claims process and allow people to make claims for that. Will I receive all interest due on unpaid balances? And the answer is no. When the Securities and Exchange Commission gets involved in a case and they file a receivership action, these actions are based on a principle of money in, money out. And that is to say that they take all the money you ever put in, all the money you ever got back, and then that's how much money that you would be owed at that point. And that's how it is calculated. So when we're doing these calculations, if there is a claims process, you will be able to claim up to 100% of your principal, but there will not be opportunities for lost interest for the most part in these cases. Occasionally, there are a variety of things that can happen, but it's very unusual. And I would just say I would not count on receiving anything above your principal amount in this case. Several months ago, there was an announcement about partial repayments to investors, but I did not see anything. That again goes back to that, which investments are being paid and how they're being paid. If you have specific questions about that, I do encourage you to reach out to us. If you think that maybe you should be getting a payment or you're just confused as to whether or not your property is one of those properties that is receiving payments, please do reach out to us and we can answer those questions for you and let you know where that is in the process. Again, I'm going to mention here just in a minute a few of the properties and where they're at in their processes. But if you have specific questions, do please reach out to us. I encourage you to use email when at all possible because that allows us to get back to you at any time. Even if there's just a couple minute lull in what we're doing. But again, we will respond to those as quickly as possible. The next one is please explain the claims process and when that process will start. So we are going to wait and process or wait to start a claims process until we are near the point at which we will know that there will be funds available to pay investors money that they will not have gotten as part of these quarterly distributions that are happening. At this point, based on our estimates, we do believe there will be funds available, but we don't want to go through the process of doing it, of doing a claims process to find out that there isn't money to do it and then have spent that money. So we want to make sure that it's justified in doing it. So I would anticipate sometime in the next 6 months or so that we will be able to make that decision. And then if we do decide to do that, the process starts to happen very quickly. We will draft a motion to the court. The court will then respond to it and open it up. And generally, you'll have about 90 days to submit a claim from the time it starts. And then so you can submit it then, and then we will go through it and we will work with you on your claims and let you know where it is at in that entire process. When can I expect to get all my money back? Again, those payments are happening on a quarterly basis, but the final payments will not happen until the final distribution happens because we do have to go through the claims process. And so that process will tell us a lot about it, but we also have to make sure that there's no tax related issues. Unfortunately, when we get involved in these, we don't know how accurate previous tax returns were filed. And so we don't know what kind of liability may exist out there. And so we are going through that process now by filing current tax returns and giving the IRS opportunity to let us know if there are any related issues or the state of Nevada for that matter. So next, the final question is, do I have to file a claim? So when we get to the claims process, if you want to put in to receive any of the remaining funds that are available at that time, you will have to file a claim. If you don't file it in the 90 days allowed by the court, you will be barred from ever asserting a claim against the estate. So when that comes out, we will notify everybody. We will email, we will send out mail, we will post notices on newspapers of general circulation to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to see that. Plus, we will be posting on our website. We will be sending out emails through the listserv that we have. If you're not already receiving those emails, you're going to want to go to the website and sign up to get them. And again, I will. The website is just capsource-receivership.com. Again, that's capsource-receivership.com. And if you go to that website, you'll have an opportunity there to sign up to make sure you're getting those notices if you have not already. Next, I'm going to move to the loan-specific investor questions. And so the first one has to do, and I'm going to group these two together because they are a related borrower, and it's Meadow 78 and King 261. We have signed a purchase and sale agreement on that. We do anticipate, and it's been sent to the court for approval. We do anticipate that the court will approve that. And so once that happens, then it will fund. And that should happen in this quarter, barring any, really outstanding circumstances that we would not anticipate. And so anybody who's invested in those two facilities will then receive payment again at the 45 days at the end of the calendar quarter. So that would be somewhere approximately May 15th. Fillmore is a property in North Dakota. We are actually in the process of accepting an offer on that property. We received an offer that we are going to accept. We're working through the language of the purchase and sale agreement now. So we do anticipate that that one will continue to move forward. It is unlikely to close in this quarter, given the time frame it takes to close the property, but we do anticipate that it should probably close in the second quarter. JC Commercial, that's a property based in Minnesota. The purchase and sale agreement has been agreed to. We've agreed to the sale price of the property. We do anticipate that property is also likely to close in the second quarter of this year. And so anybody who's invested in that property should see that happening. And they have people who are invested in that property have been receiving quarterly payments on that as well. Texas 156. There's a few properties left in that investment. We are actually in the process of drafting a PSA. We've already agreed to a sale price on those last remaining 4 lots, and we do anticipate that should also close, if not in this first quarter, early in the second quarter of this year. And then the last active property is ARC, and that has to do with the investment for option 3 investors in that property. There are also Reg D investors in that property. They're invested directly through ARC, and so there have been some payments there will be some payments that are being made to both option 3 and Reg D investors as part of a settlement that ARC had with the SEC. We are just about to submit a proposed distribution plan to the court, and then the court will ultimately decide how those funds will be distributed. But it's likely that those funds will be distributed sometime in the next 30 to 60 days, assuming that there aren't any significant holdups. Again, ARC has been working with us very diligently on these properties, helping us to get through this process and make sure that that investors are being treated as fairly as possible. And then the ARC loan to Capsource, we've been working through that as well. We've been trying to get these other issues resolved prior to resolving the final payment issue that we have with ARC and the final payment on that. But again, they've been very diligent in working with us. We've met a number of times, and we do anticipate that there should not be any significant holdups there at all. Let's see. So again, with ARC, we have been receiving payments. The option 3 investors and the Reg D investors have been receiving payments. The option 3 from us in the quarterly, and then the Reg D investors have been receiving payments directly from ARC. If you have specific questions related to your investment, again, I recommend that you reach out to us. If you're a Reg D investor, I do recommend you reach out to ARC if you have specific questions about payments. But we're happy to do what we can to answer any questions that you might have. The next group of properties are properties that have all closed previously, and that includes 5th Avenue, WKH Servicing, 215 Bridge Street, Deer Springs, Panorama, and those are entities that were receivership entities but sold previously, where there were a reduction in the total loan payment to investors was taken, and so investors did not receive back all of their money. Those will have an opportunity to make a claim, as well as some others will have an opportunity to make a claim once that claims process starts. So if you have specific questions related to your loan and you were invested in one of those, just know that they are part of the ones that will have an opportunity to make a claim if there's funds available. And then we did get some questions related to Global Biolabs, CAI Investments, West Coast Income Fund, CapWest. I just want to remind people that those are not receivership entities. We are not in control of them. They are under the control of a third party. And so if you have specific questions related to those, I recommend that you reach out to the people that are in charge of those specific investments. If you have concerns about your investment, or you think that, perhaps maybe it should have been a receivership entity, or have some concerns, you're welcome to reach out to us and we can do what we can to look into them and see what is going on. But we are going to be limited as to what we can do, until we receive more information about them. And then finally, if you want to make sure you're receiving our regular updates, our emails, you're going to want to make sure you signed up on our website, make sure we know who you are. We have current contact information from you. If you want to change where your checks are being sent, or who the payee is on the checks, again, we have a specific form for that. That form will be available on our website, as well as it's a form we can send to you. But you can fill that out and submit it to us. We may ask you for some supporting documentation if you're making certain changes, to verify that it's you and that you have the right to make those changes. But we're happy to work through those with you. If you do have questions, again, the email is contact@capsource-receivership.com. Again, that's contact@capsource-receivership.com. Or you can call us at 971-357-2220. Again, that's 971-357-2220. If you would like to register on our website or just find out more information, again, you can go to capsource-receivership.com. Again, that's capsource-receivership.com. So if you have any questions, or you want to make sure you're staying up to date, that's a great source of information. All of our quarterly reports get posted there, as well as any important documents that have been filed in the court will also get posted there as well. If you have specific questions related to your investment, or if you're unsure exactly what your investment is, do please reach out to us, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that we can answer those questions for you. Otherwise, I will check the chat real quick just to see if there's any questions that popped up that did not necessarily get answered in the process. And we will do what you can. Let's see here. I've not received any. So if you have questions specifically related to not having received funds that you think that you should have received based on the money that was distributed, you're going to want to reach out to us so we can go through those and answer those questions specifically. I see there's a couple questions. They're asking questions about Fifth Avenue and whether or not they received payment. Again, each one of these investments, as we're getting them, they're either receiving 60 or 75% of the payout, and then the remaining amount will be eligible then to have a claim filed for at the end of the estate, and the amount of available funds available at that point. We do hope that there will be funds available to cover any of those other losses, but until we get through some of these other issues, we won't know exactly what that number is. So again, I want to thank you all for jumping on the call today. We will be doing another one of these calls in approximately 90 days. So you're welcome to reach out to us in the interim and ask questions, or if you have questions you'd like to be answered on this call, then I would encourage you to send those to us when we send out the email requesting specific answers. So again, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to give you this information and work with you, and please do reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.